Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of This is My Bourbon Podcast. I'm your host, Perry, and with me this week, because Swan's off, I can't believe you guys still haven't met, but I am super happy to welcome back to the show one of my buddies from the PodCask. It's the Greeze. Man, hi, first off.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me. One, two, pretty brave of you having, because I think the last time I was on here, it was with Will. This is unsupervised.
Here's the thing. The last time you were on, when Will was also on, you were supervising Will more than he was supervising you.
That's the last time we were on this show.
Yeah, because that was Whiskey Weekend Batch 1. We recorded at Whiskey Weekend Batch 2, but the audio was so unbearably bad because of how much was going on around us.
Right.
That I was like, I can't put this out. And like, you know, I wanted to include some of those conversations, and it's no knock against what was going on around us. Everybody was partying. I was the idiot who decided I'm going to record a podcast in the middle of the final celebration of Whiskey Weekend Batch 2.
In the middle of Game of Thrones, winter is coming. Yeah, for sure.
It was not a good idea on my part. So that episode is very much lost to time. But the last official, I guess,
unreleased episode. I feel like it's Patreon content, bro.
That might drop on Patreon eventually if I'm feeling, little squirrely one week. But the last official appearance of you guys on the show was Whiskey Weekend Batch 1.
Not a great look. Here's the deal.
I did a lot of editing.
That. I know for a fact of 100% that I can't do worse than that. And that makes me so happy because Will's always nervous when I go and do this crap. And I'm like, dude, the last time we were on it was Whiskey Weekend Batch 1.
And it was his fault. It wasn't even yours.
Oh,
like
I tried to save it.
You did. And here's the thing. I think I might have put out the unedited audio from that on Patreon because I just had to share some of that. But the amount of editing that I did to save Will.
Right.
And you know what, Will?
He was not his best look. He was wearing that daggum Merle Haggard jacket.
The stinkiest jacket in the whiskey game.
I mean, when you wear that jacket, dude, I mean, you have to show up. Like you can't wear that jacket and be PG. Like you can't. It's like a Southern Baptist in another state that he's not a deacon in, okay? And he's got unlimited funds and the bar is open, okay? And that's just what happens. That's just how it is. I don't know if I can say any of that, but I said it.
I don't care, honestly, because I have a buddy who used to go to a church in Alabama. It's not you. It's somebody else, but oh no, you're from Georgia. Never mind. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
My brain.
I know people in Alabama.
My brain is still broken from the subathon yesterday, where I basically just talked and drank for 9 straight hours on camera.
I know. And when you said you're like, I need a nap, I was like, yeah. Like, yeah. I'm looking at you. I'm like, I need you to take a nap.
I took a nap today because my baby was finally sleeping. And I'm just like finally getting to sit on the couch, and like Harry Potter was on, and I was like, I've seen this 1,000 times. I don't need to pay attention. And so I passed out, and she was sleeping on my chest, and I was like, this is just the best thing in the world. Yep. And I looked at Lucy, and I was like, I've never needed a nap so badly in my entire life. And it was magic. It was absolute magic.
Right.
But so I have a buddy who used to go to church in Alabama, and he said it was not uncommon for them to pull out of the church parking lot and pull right into the liquor store drive-through, which was literally next door to the church. So there's a long history with us.
Man,
Baptists.
I'm a huge fan of you can love Jesus and love whiskey. You know what I mean?
I'm not opposed to that at all. I'm not opposed to that at all.
I don't knock any of those guys that, go to church and, try to hide it. Like I've been there, but my wife was super like that. Like her family, it was not good.
Yeah.
So those that did it hit it, and it and
Yeah.
not to knock them, like I completely understand, but it's when in the freedom of that, of when they're just like, you know what, this is something that can be respected.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
And enjoyed. And it is what it is.
It's about temperance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you respect something, there's a lot of things out there that are looked at negatively, but if you give it an ounce of respect, and that's not a pun, it's it can be accomplished and it can be enjoyed. And I've had so many like really good in-depth, and I've had it with you on the front porch of Beaumont Inn. I've had so many in-depth spiritual conversations 6 ounces deep into whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can handle that. I can't handle 10, apparently, after a pub, but whatever. That's a whole nother story. That was on Patreon.
Go check out Patreon.
I'm going to go ahead and tell you. I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now. If you're not on Patreon and you're listening to this, you need to subscribe to Perry's Patreon. I don't know like what level you would lean towards, but here's the deal. I think you get all that content at any level. So you need to go in there because we just did this whole like other video.
$5 is where the last call and the pregame chats are available.
Here's the deal. If you don't, I mean, if you don't necessarily love to hear talk about sharks and what else do we talk about? So many things. There's so many.
JNCO. Yeah,
JNCO. Shark Talk alone, it's worth $5 for sure. Hey, and people that are listening about Patreon, because I know this about Patreon. If you go and subscribe and pay and become a backer, it unlocks all previous content. So let me go ahead and tell you what you're going to have. For $5 month one, you're going to there's not enough time in the day of how much content you unrelease. I promise you it's worth it. Go and do it.
Yeah. And we have so much stuff that we've been putting out. And what was great about the pandemic, and, please don't cut that out of context and then clip it around something else. But what was great about the pandemic was that it gave me the opportunity to be like, let's just push more stuff to Patreon. Let's be really dedicated to it and make sure that there's stuff for people to listen to and be entertained by, and like really hunkering down on the pregame chats and the last call and all that stuff. So you're right. There is so much stuff that you can go and check out. So for us, it's patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast. You guys are patreon.com/the PodCask, right?
Yeah, but we don't do crap. I'm just kidding.
I was going to say, you guys got a lot of stuff.
Here's the deal. If you do Patreon, do Perry's first. And then if you've got enough money left in the month and you want to do ours, great. This is about Perry.
I appreciate you, brother. I always appreciate you. I also appreciated you showing up yesterday for my what was supposed to be 1,000 subathon over on YouTube, but we fell a little bit short and hit 663. But we started the day out at about 550. So
you built over 100 subscribers. If I have learned anything, number one, dude, our podcast numbers, great.
Yeah.
Pandemic hits, it's not so great. We're like, dang it, like we're missing some people. What have people transitioned to? A lot of people, when they're sitting at home and they're at their desktops and their own computers, they're watching YouTube. So we're like, okay, let's do it for YouTube. We can literally ask all of our listeners on podcasts, please go to our YouTube page and hit subscribe. It'd be so great. We would love you. Podcasters, our Patreon. It is pulling teeth. People love the platform that they're on. People love the platform that they're on for so many reasons. Okay.
Yeah.
So do not get discouraged. You grew 100 subscribers. Now
that's the thing. I can't be upset about that at all, because like and this is getting real technical, but like
you grew like 20%.
Yeah. And like looking at that and the fact that that's going to play into the algorithm so well, and not only just seeing, YouTube's going to be like, wow, this guy got a bunch of subscribers in one day. That's easily my most viewed video on YouTube as well. Right.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I mean, sure, it might hurt us a little bit because it was almost 9 hours long, but at the same time, like, hopefully they'll see the numbers in terms of viewership and they'll try to, give us a little bit of a boost if they're, try and take care of their boys or whatever. But it's YouTube. Who's to say? But also, I want to say thank you to you for stopping by for a little bit. Had a great big group of people who stopped by throughout the day as well. I apologize. My brain is so fried from everything yesterday that I can't even begin to like rattle off those names of people who stopped in to say hello. But huge thank you to everybody who came in and subscribed. And if you're here because of YouTube, listening to the podcast, thank you so much. We have over 150 episodes for you to go and listen to and catch up on. I'll give a little bit of piece of advice though. Maybe don't listen to some of those early episodes because like you and Will were on like episode 5 and I still cringe thinking about the way that I like interviewed you guys for that. It felt like I
need to listen back.
Don't.
I remember us getting so many texts after that and be like, dude, like that's awesome. You were on Perry's show and like all this other stuff. So
why?
I mean, I think people enjoyed it. Like, I think they really liked it. Like, I vividly remember people actually messaging me and texting me and be like, I loved it. You know, so great.
That's crazy, man.
All that stuff.
That's crazy. Cause like I, in a, you know, hindsight's very 2020. But you know, I like, it's so different from what I'm doing with the show now based on that first time that you, yeah. Oh, no. I totally get that. You guys,
everybody,
you know, what's funny? Like, I forget you guys were probably the first podcast I listened to that interviewed Fred Minnick.
Oh yeah. It was pretty early on. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
Then that Joker decides to blow up and be like the basically as big as the word bourbon itself.
And now he's
Fred.
Now he's taking over podcast and YouTube too. And you're like, well,
and here's the deal. He's a decent looking human being. And then he like puts on this sash, which by the way, I didn't even know it was called an ascot. Like I thought him an ass, but that's not the case. At first I was like, why are you being mean? And then I'm like, no, he's wearing an ascot. Like it's the sash you're talking about. I'm like, I didn't know it was called that. I'm from Northeast Georgia. My wife's cousin stack of AJ Stout. Like we're not cultured. Okay. So anyway, I learned that and I was like, oh, okay. And then he's got these new awards.
Yeah.
That's called awards or whatever. Dude, Fred's in a great shape.
He is. I mean, and I'm very thankful that I get to call Fred a friend. Like I am super, super thankful for the fact that he and I have spent so much time conversing and he has really been a mentor for me as well throughout all of this. And
he's definitely a mentor to a lot of people for sure. He's great. He has capitalized on so much. I would second what you're saying. Like for him to come on our show really early on, because you have to think too, Will and I were so new into whiskey. Like we were literally trying to learn, and he wrote a book on whiskey and we were like, dude, this guy knows so much. Yeah. And we had to have him on. It was fascinating. It's one of my favorite episodes. Him and Bernie Lubbers early on, those 2 episodes.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
Blew my mind.
Yeah.
So generous to come on, you know, a show that was so young. It was great.
I want to kind of circle back to some of that here in just a bit, but I also love asking people because this, you know, just kind of part of what we do here on the show. Greeze, what the heck have you been drinking recently?
Recently,
I mean, you can go like a week, 2 weeks since last time we saw each other which was last March. Literally the week before everything started shutting down because of the pandemic.
Right. I mean, so recently, because of all the YouTube live content Will and I are doing, because we're just getting involved in it.
Yeah.
It seems like I've looked back at a couple of episodes and it seems like I have some go-to bottles because I don't chug bottles normally. Like I share my bottles, but I've got like 2 or 3 that those are mine that I'm like not really going to share. They're good, but it's not like, oh man, you got to try this OWA or, oh, you got to try this Willet. Like I've got others for that. These are just like more in the pocket offerings. And I've got 3 that I just turn up, dude. Like I'm like, I don't care. It's this, and here's the deal. They're good. Like I don't want to knock them by any means, but I've kind of tainted them. But I've got this NOLA Big Chief OWA pick, and they threw some they threw some foil on there, but there's his like emblem there or whatever.
Nice.
This is a really good pick. I bought it off of a buddy that had already opened it, and he was just selling off all of his stuff, so I bought it. The other thing that I've been chugging recently from the bottle. That's
what we're going to call it every time you come on is what you've been chugging recently.
That's a great way. Sweet tea, which is a Willet pick that we did for Southern Whiskey Society.
I haven't had that in a hot minute, but I remember it being just
But you don't
delicious.
want that one because I've tongue punched that one.
I don't want that. I don't want that one from you. Maybe I'll get somebody else to send me a sample.
Yeah, somebody's got one. Sweet tea. There was some drama around those, but sweet tea was good.
I want to point out one thing real quick, and we kind of talked about this before we started recording, but you're not drinking out of a glass necessarily. You're drinking out of something made of glass.
Right.
But this is in the PodCask canon, one of the greasiest things I've ever seen, which is you drinking right out of a decanter that you keep pouring stuff into. And let me tell you, it makes me really happy to see this right now.
Yeah, there's been arguments made that if I show up somewhere and drinking, I better have this vessel. This is just an antique that I found literally in San Diego, California's Goodwill.
Wow.
I found this in San Diego. We had just had my middle child. She was 6 weeks old. She's 4 now. So 4 years ago, I snagged this, and I was on a show the other day. We were doing a drinking with, I think it was Whiskey with a View. And I forgot to have a Glencairn down here to nose or a Norland or whatever. I've got a few options. Yeah. But I forgot. So I have this this rack, and it's typically full. I've gone through a few, and I didn't have any, and we're live. And so, with live stuff, it's like
you got to improvise, man.
I don't need to leave. You know what I mean? And so literally on the shelf over here is this crystal decanter from 4 years ago. And I'm going to be honest with you, bro. Like, the mouth on this thing is so massive. Like, you can get your nose halfway down this thing. And it's helped me nose 100%. Because it's got enough air. It's got enough air in here.
Right.
That it's not crazy astringent because it's got nowhere to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it actually, because that's the thing about kind of narrow opening stuff is that it's hard to get some notes because of the heavy alcohol that you're just going to get. You're going to get a ton of ethanol.
Right.
I feel like the body of this, with it being so big, kind of helps dilute that. I get a lot of good notes. I love hearing that, but I also love hearing the fact that literally this is something that would have only happened during a global pandemic, and the Greeze would have been like, dadgummit, what am I going to drink out of? And not an open bottle. You're not going to pour it into an open bottle. You're going to find the next best thing, and it's literally a vintage crystal decanter. Well, it was either that or the
Stranahan's cup.
This one's not Stranahan's.
Oh yeah, I guess it's smaller, isn't it?
Yeah, it is smaller. I have a Stranahan's, but I don't know who gave me these, but these are smaller. They're essentially just metal shot glasses, and I was like, I don't want it to taste tinny. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
like a tin.
Dude, do you know about Keeneland, right?
The racetrack?
Yeah.
I don't know a thing about it except I know that there's this Kentucky Derby. There's Keeneland.
And never the two shall meet, actually.
There's Preakness.
Yeah, not a Kentucky thing.
Wait, it's not?
No, that Preakness is up in Maryland, I think. Okay, but so
what's the other? There's 3 big ones, right?
Well, there's the Preakness. Well, okay, no, it's the Derby, the Preakness, and Belmont Stakes, and that's the Triple Crown. Yeah.
Okay, so Keeneland, stepchild.
Basically. So
but it's still cool.
Yeah, no. So it's our local racetrack, and they run twice a year, just like everywhere else does with their meets.
You're kind of closer to Lexington, right?
I'm right in Lexington. Yeah.
Copy that.
But so it runs once in the spring, once in the fall. But like the big thing is to basically go to the racetrack and not actually go into the racetrack and just go tailgate, of course.
Oh, right.
So yeah. So there was one time I went.
You're my people.
Yeah, exactly. But there was one time I went and I did a
tailgate for Black Friday, bro. Like, I don't even need an event. I mean, I just need an event that will keep my wife occupied. That's all I need.
Where other people are.
Right. And then we're tailgating outside of that. 100%.
Where one or more are gathered, whiskey shall be poured.
Let's just be biblical. Let's be biblical about it, bro. 100%.
So there was one time we went to Keeneland to go tailgate. I think I was still in college. And by the way, I went to college for an extended period of time. So that's another conversation for a different time. But I had done a very, very poor job of cleaning out my flask. And I had put like, I don't know, Elijah Craig or Turkey 101 or something in it. And it was the most metally tasting, nasty bourbon I had ever had. Like, because it was still coated with the crap that had sat in there for too long. Right. And I even trying to mix it with Coke. I couldn't drink. And this was before, like way before the podcast too. I was like, I can't drink bourbon for a while because I can't get that memory out of my brain, out of my mouth. So
that's how I felt about Southern Comfort.
Everybody should feel that way about Southern Comfort.
Yeah, it's not real.
No, it's not real. It's not real bourbon.
It's engineered.
So one of the things that I wanted to talk about with you, and this is stemming from basically our entire relationship, right? And that's just based on anecdotes and stories and the memories that have kind of been built on experiences through things like and I give you guys, of course, a lot of credit for these because it's at the forefront of my mind, but like Southern Whiskey Society and Whiskey Weekend, of course, and even in moments like the pandemic where we're able to build some really unique stories, but also like why these are able to exist because of stories from whiskey history, right? So like in some way I want to talk about the importance of those. And you know, the other thing too, like I feel like I'm doing a little bit of legwork for trying to sell Whiskey Weekend Batch 3 for you boys, but
well, I've always loved your legs, Perry.
Yeah. 2020 was not kind to the legs. I'll just say that much.
Oh no, they were. Gravity was fulfilled in 2020, buddy. Dude, I'm telling you right now, dude. If we were in like the Anaconda, Antarctica, or whatever it is, I don't know what you call it. The
Anaconda.
I don't know if we're trapped, and like, you know, and there's like somebody that I would nominate, you know, that, hey man, let's just go ahead, sedate him a little bit, cut his leg off and eat it. I would eat yours.
I would not object because I would know that that's coming from a place of pure, not even respect, but adoration for what God has blessed me with.
Right. It's like, dude, Perry's calves can feed a village. Okay. So why would we take out 10 people when we could just saunter to Perry?
I'm a thigh, and man, I'm all thighs. Like in my baby book, my mom wrote like maybe 3 things. Like one was probably like, oh, he's so cute. 2 was, holy crap, he's got this cowlick in the middle of his forehead, which I still have. I have 3 cowlicks on my daggum head. I've got one here, one on the side of my neck, and one on the back. Doesn't matter. That's not the point. The 3rd thing was that she said, I can't believe how chunky his thighs are. This was within the week of me being born. And my mother, God bless her, said, this boy's got some meat on him. And I still have that. And let me tell you something. I'm thankful for it because that means that my beautiful little daughter also was blessed with that. And it's one of the cutest things I've ever seen in my entire life.
She got some chunky thighs.
Dude.
Yeah, my middle daughter totally, man. She was a little bit more chunkier, and like, dude, those rolls are so freaking great. So
you know what's funny is like I just had a moment where I realized how far I had fallen into being a dad hole. Where I was like, normally I send
dude,
pictures.
We've been on this for 5 minutes.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
But it's like normally I'll be like, oh, I'm going to send guys, the picture of the new bottle I picked up, or, I'm out at a bar and I'm sending them the picture of a pour that I had or whatever. But a part of my brain just went, oh, I've got to send him a picture of my daughter's chunky legs.
Right. Right. Yeah. You sent me a daggum half dead shark earlier, and it's going to be followed up with.
You can only go up from there. Honestly.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
But yeah. So there are so many stories that are built into the history of whiskey, right? And it's whether it's E.H. Taylor or Elijah Craig being the father of modern bourbon as we know it, quote unquote, because he charred the first barrel or whatever. But like, do you have a favorite story that you kind of come back to with bourbon or even whiskey in general that kind of makes you go like, I'm pretty happy with what's going on in this community?
Well, it's funny. The history buff is Will. So you had the wrong guy on for the show, which is fine, but I'm completely fine with it. Whatever.
I invited both of you, you suckers, onto this podcast, and you were like, I don't think Will's going to be able to make it. You might have just been speaking for Will as well.
I tend to do that. I don't know.
If Will is not on because you just assumed he wouldn't be able to do it, now I feel real bad. So, Will, I'm going to have to do a separate episode with you now.
Here's the deal about me picking somebody in history that freaking changed the game. Okay. Or was pretty monumental in it. You're not going to like my answer at all. It's very not Kentucky.
Oh,
and I'm okay with that.
That's okay.
Jack Daniel. I mean, the biggest brand in all of whiskey. If you go international, if you remotely saunter onto a cruise ship or an airplane or overseas, you're lucky if you find, Wild Turkey.
Well, yeah.
Four Roses, Buffalo Trace, Blanton's. You're going to be lucky. You know what you are going to find? You're going to find freaking Jack Daniels everywhere. It is the biggest brand of all time.
Yeah.
Will and I actually recently got to go and tour the facility and do a pick there, and it was an incredible experience. Highly recommend. But man, like hearing the history, and two with Fawn Weaver.
Yeah.
She with Uncle Nearest and all that, like the history there is just insane. So you've got this one guy that ends up being a $1 billion industry that also paves the way for another distillery to happen. There's just a lot of history there, and it's incredible. And they've had a solid team around them for marketing and all this other stuff for so long. It's one of the most recognizable brands in the entire world. I would give a lot of credit to him, even though it's not Kentucky.
No, but truthfully, I don't think that the story of bourbon can be told without. And it's not just bourbon. It is whiskey, at least in the Americas, but it cannot be told without discussing people like Nearest Green or talking about Jack Daniel. I mean, they're synonymous with American whiskey, literally synonymous with American whiskey. Mm-hmm. And so, like, the big stigma that we've been talking about so much recently is, what does bourbon look like outside of Kentucky? what does whiskey look like outside of Kentucky, at least in the United States? And I mean, George Washington made whiskey. He was a rye whiskey maker and drinker.
Right. Yeah,
So
I think he loved rye for sure.
Did. Yeah, he did. He loved that Pennsylvania rye style. And I mean, you can't just solely base the laurels of American whiskey or American bourbon on Kentucky, because Kentucky bourbon was a product of almost an accident with Elijah Craig.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, also, talking about a monumental person in history, Elijah Craig's pretty high up there. I would put that pretty daggum high. Even though who knows what the real story is. I'm not going to get into that.
I'm not concerned with that at all. I think that even like the myth behind it, I think is pretty. It's inviting.
Here's the deal, dude.
And fun, okay? For sure.
I spilled kerosene in my van during this whole freaking ice storm. And I can't get rid of the smell. Okay. The only thing that's come to my mind. So here's Elijah Craig, this whole story makes complete sense. If you have a bunch of fish barrels, how are you going to, and you're too poor to make new barrels. You're like, well, these barrels exist, so I'm going to burn them. I mean, that just it makes logical sense, Perry.
I don't disagree with you. But I do want to dissuade you from maybe going out to your van with a torch and lighting that bad boy on fire to get rid of the smell. Because that's not, I mean, I don't know how greasy we're getting at the moment, but
dude, we've tried to steam clean that thing. We've thrown coffee grounds in there. We have thrown baking soda in there. We have vacuumed it up. We have steamed it up. We have prayed the demons out of that daggum thing, and it's still not they're still there. They're just sitting there looking at us, taunting us like the daggum freaking gremlins. It's so stupid.
Don't try to wash this thing with water after midnight. Am I right, boys?
What happened?
Oh, did I cut out again? Did I cut out again?
No, you said don't watch this stuff after midnight.
No, I said don't wash this thing out with water after midnight.
What does that mean?
The kerosene. Like the gremlins?
Yeah. Oh,
don't get it wet. But I kind of
sorry.
No, dude. I punted on that one. I definitely tried to combine. This is why
you don't record on Sunday night, because you've lived the weekend too freaking hardcore, and you get to Sunday night and you're like, man, I don't know. Like, did he just
no?
Say
you know,
that?
You know what you don't do is you don't record a podcast after 9 hours of sitting in front of a camera trying to create content. That's the problem. That's the real problem here. Anyway, regardless,
I don't think I want to say kudos, but you know what I mean? Something like kudos. Kudos to you.
Good on you, maybe.
Good on you. Is that what the kids are saying?
Well, that's what that's.
Are they saying like something like fresh, man? It's super fresh.
I say good on you because I don't know if you know this about me. I, for whatever reason, have locked into a bunch of Australian podcasts, and they're all like nerdy stuff, like reports, or they'll talk about comic books and comic book movies and stuff like that. But that's what I like. There's a very specific group of podcasts that I listen to every week, and the majority of them, like 90% of them, are Australian. It's so weird, man. I don't know. I don't even know exactly
to the voice of Australians for sure.
Well,
we have an Australian listener to the podcast, and he always puts up these incredible like burgers and like just dishes. And it makes me so upset because out of all of our listeners, that's the hardest place to get to. Outside of like daggum Afghanistan or something, but you know what I mean? Just because logistics.
Yeah,
but I
mean,
Australia, like how am I going to get there? That's hard. Like Puerto Rico, not that big of a deal.
No problem.
But I mean, at least, it's within the United States-ish. And I could take a Southwest plane there. Here's what I can't do. I can't take a Southwest flight to freaking Australia and go and have that. So it pisses me off every time you post something freaking awesome because I can't go and get it.
If you guys ever decide to do like an American whiskey podcast tour in Australia, like go and do a bunch of live shows, I am so down. We could do like get us in like 2 or 3 other shows, like Dad's Drinking Bourbon, get like Bourbon Lynn's, Bourbon Road. Like we could have.
You're basically trying to figure out how to expense this. I'm completely into that. I'm totally fine going party in another country and be able to write it off in the United States. I can't think of a better thing to do.
This is basically America. How you got you. This is how the idea for you guys to get on the pod cruise came about as well. Basically.
Oh man, the pod cruise, dude! It's gonna happen again. I don't know when. It was the greatest moment in podcast history. It was the freaking OG Whiskey Weekend before it was called Whiskey Weekend.
That's where like I felt like, and you and Will can probably talk more to this as well, but like the story of the podcast kind of got cemented, right? Like that's where it was like, this is a real thing.
The pod cruise?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got to think at that time, it's like you're okay. Let's just say you download our podcast, right? And you're listening to it. When you hear that these guys promoted something on a podcast that you casually listen to and you have no idea of the audience, right?
Yeah.
And they end up having 70 people show up to party with them on a cruise ship for a week.
Bonkers.
You're just like, okay, that sounds pretty cool. I'm into that. I don't know. I think honestly, it kind of sprinkled some credibility, but I think the biggest thing it did was just say, these dudes are freaking ready to party. And I need to be ready to party the next time they party. And that's what happened with Whiskey Weekend. Now, Whiskey Weekend's just a little different than a cruise.
There's still unconfirmed rumors about you tackling and or riding a goat at Whiskey Weekend.
Yeah, there's some rumors out there. I never did it. I'm going to go ahead and dispel the rumors that I did. However, I saw a goat. And the thing that Dixon keeps saying, oh, that didn't happen. I saw a goat, okay, on property.
It's that NDA.
Maybe. There's some weird NDAs surrounding Beaumont Inn that I can't talk about. But all I know is that there was a goat, and we locked eyes, and it told me via eyes, it said, this is my home. Like, this is my spot. You were in my dwelling, and I'm upset about it. And so I knew that this is this goat's territory. This goat lives here or near here. Dixon claims that that's not true, and it is. I mean, if there's anything I can say about goats, Perry, I would just tell you that they can throw down. Okay.
I'm not going to get into an official WWE cage match with a goat to save my life. I can't even fathom what that would look like for my.
I can fathom what it would look like, and it would look a lot like a daggone Taco Bell chicken quesadilla is what it would look like. and let me go ahead and tell you something. You're the chopped up chicken in the middle of a daggone tortilla with some jalapeno sauce.
I don't disagree with that by any means.
Goats are mean.
They're so angry. They're on the same level as like geese. Though?
Wouldn't you be? Can you imagine if I had a couple of horns right here? I'd be pissed too.
They hurt.
They can't even scratch your back. You know what I mean? Like you can't even. What's the point of these, bro?
You got no flexibility.
Thank God rested. He should have freaking done something different with these daggum horns. I'm upset.
Are you now?
Not really.
Like you got some pent up rage that you haven't been able to get out on your show.
I've been super upset with the Lord about how he has conducted himself with freaking goat horns. Okay.
Totally unrelated to the imagery of Satan.
I've sat down with my pastor and he said, dude, you need to calm your heart. You know what I mean? Like I can't let it go. I can't let it go, Perry. It's fine.
So
Will's listening to this and he's going to be like, yep, I would have cut that.
Yep.
I would have cut that. I would have cut that.
Here's the difference. Here's the difference, Will. Greeze.
You have better thighs. That's the difference.
I have better
Yeah, I've seen Will's thighs. Will's thighs look like a daggum 2-liter Coke. Not really cool. Not even like a 3-liter. It's like caffeine-free Coke, 2-liter.
I need to go to the gym.
He's got sweet thighs.
Oh, thank you. I'm getting a headache from thinking about my thighs too much. But I want to talk about too.
Is that what they call it? A headache?
Sure it is. Preemptive hangover.
Yeah, I got
it. But I also want to, like, here's the thing. We have been able to develop the storytelling and the narrative of community of bourbon and whiskey over the past 5+ years because we have bought into it, not just from like a market standpoint, but from the fact that like this is something that we enjoy and it's something we want to share with other people. But honestly, one of my favorite stories is the fact that during the 70s and 80s, when bourbon was at its lowest and people were just going to bars to be cool and they're drinking martinis or drinking, you know, their gin and tonics because that was what they were seeing either depicted by like James Bond or, you know, in.
Yeah, you got to think too, like people started to really focus in on body image during that time.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And light liquor had a connotation of it's less fattening.
Yeah.
Which is odd. But
it doesn't make any sense. It still has
I don't
sugars.
think it matters,
but you know, there was also that idea that, you know, it was my grandparents' drink, but then the grandparents of like our generation were the ones who actually went out and saved it. And I'm talking about the Jimmy Russells, the Booker Noes, the Jim Rutledges of the world, who tried to revive these brands and kind of like independently did it without, there wasn't any like Illuminati deal where they all like got together behind closed doors and were like, hey, we've got to go to Japan and try to sell this, or we've got to go to Canada and, you know, make sure people know that bourbon is viable. But like they believed so much, not just in the product, but in the heritage of the product, that they wanted to keep it alive. And that to me goes back to E.H. Taylor, who was the big proponent for the Bottled and Bond Act, of course. And the fact that it's all rooted in, like, we can get through this. There's a perseverance about bourbon that I think a lot of us have really latched onto, especially over the past year with the pandemic and trying to, you know, still hold on to the sense of community that we had spent so much time building and the stories that we spent working on together, and memories and treasures. But no, the point is, like, we've gotten this far with it that I think we're at a really good point where even if the market busts, we don't have to worry about the community busting as well.
Oh man, great point. Did you say the what of whiskey the perseverance of whiskey? Is that what you said? Yeah. Absolutely. You're spot on. I mean, even looking at, you know, was the Heaven Hill Fire 96 or 92?
90. Yeah, it was 96.
96.
Yeah.
92's in my head because that's when like the last round of Stitzelweller went into Jefferson's presidential. That's when.
Oh, okay.
That's yeah. I get this confused. I don't know why it's like, oh yeah, the Fire versus Stitzelweller. I don't know why I get those years confused, but
I've got no explanation for you,
it's
buddy.
the craziest thing ever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the perseverance of whiskey, absolutely. I mean, they've dealt with prohibition. They have dealt with, have to create decanters and gimmicks on every release in order to even remotely sell it. Where, you know, the bulk of the cost is actually in the container, not the whiskey itself. Which is crazy. You know, they've They've dealt with fires, and then the whiskey industry, even though they don't have anything to do with Heaven Hill, are giving them stock just to get back and up and running. I heard something amazing. A good buddy that I recently met, his name's Ethan at the Kentucky Artisan Distillery. He basically said that, and it goes hand in hand with the perseverance of bourbon that I just talked about. But he said that basically there's no competition in whiskey. And that's why people helped, Heaven Hill during the fire. That's like, if something went all up in flames, the whiskey community would surround them. The reason is because the distilleries that believe in their product, if they are making the best product they possibly can, and people like it, everything else, it just doesn't matter. So the only competition for a distillery is themselves. And that's what I really love about the whiskey industry, because it's, yes, you're going to have some releases that are all about the bottle, or they're all about the limited edition or whatever. But the core basis of a distillery, their only competition is themselves.
Yeah.
It's their job day in and day out to produce the best whiskey they possibly can. And if they do, and people like it, then it's going to sell like hotcakes, and it doesn't matter about anything else. And that's what I love that about whiskey. I do.
I do too. And one of the things that has been so prominent over the past couple of years is the discussion around Buffalo Trace and their reaction to their growing popularity, right? This isn't the first time that I've talked about this in the past couple of days, but when you rest your opinion solely on one distillery's product, then you're kind of setting yourself up for failure, right? Because and one of my favorite things about bourbon, of course, is the variety and the fact that you can go to a different distillery who might have literally the exact same mash bill, but they're sourcing their grains from a different farm, or their water is going through a purification that, another distillery isn't, or they're using different yeast strains or whatever. But like, if you're looking at it at a face value, it's so irrelevant to the core of the production value and what people truly believe in. I think that, and jump in whenever you feel like, or correct me if I'm wrong, but like, the distillery that doesn't, there's a way I want to phrase this, and I'm trying to find the right words for it, but the distillery that doesn't solely rely on the market to encourage their own value internally is usually one of the most well-regarded or most preserved distilleries in bourbon, right? So someplace like Wild Turkey, I feel like Wild Turkey in some ways is kind of a cult following, right? And I don't mean that
there's no more consistent distillery on the planet than Wild Turkey.
I totally agree. Agree.
Yes. Here's the deal. You can find some old school Wild Turkey and you can say all you want, like, oh man, that was in its prime. They're going to look at Wild Turkey from 2021 and they're going to say, dude, remember when Wild Turkey was in its prime? Like it's not wavering.
Yeah.
They have the process. They have where you store it. It's all the same. It's just in the pocket, freaking badass whiskey. Yeah. And it's going to continue to be.
Absolutely.
They haven't been acquired by anyone. They're not selling here, selling there, changing how they're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They've got the land. They've been there a daggum long time, and they're doing it really, really good. You can't find a more consistent brand of whiskey, in my opinion. Except for Jack Daniel, probably. That's, that process to a T is the exact same it was, a bajillion years ago.
Right. And I think that the story of Wild Turkey itself has kind of been lost to the general public in terms of whiskey consumers because so much of Wild Turkey was consumed as, college party whiskey or, shot whiskey or, oh man,
dude,
you got
it's
101.
cheap and it's it's not 100 proof. It's 101 proof.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, freaking think about Spinal Tap. No, it doesn't go to 10. It goes to daggum 11. You're going to get the 101. You're not going to get the 100.
But
you're not going to get SoCo 100. You're going to get freaking Wild Turkey 101.
And the thing is, too, and I've said it a bajillion times on the podcast, Wild Turkey 101 is consistently my daily drinker. It will always be what I go to if I'm just trying to relax after
What's it normally like 8 years? It's around, what, 8 years old?
Yeah, I think it was age stated at 8 years. So now I think they kind of like blend it with
six-ish, 6 to 8-ish.
Exactly.
It's not less than 6, 100%.
Oh, absolutely not. And Elijah Craig and Wild Turkey 101 were two of those products that I felt like the quality didn't dip when they dropped the age statements, right? And I'm not saying that, Special Reserve did when they dropped that age statement from 7. Because and honestly, I don't really have a good frame of reference for that. But, those old paper labels or whatever that were 7 years old. Yeah, see, there you go. There you go. But like, do
for you patrons that get to visually see it, or maybe everybody, I don't know.
I still haven't made up my mind on that yet. You could be seeing this on YouTube for everybody, but we'll see.
There's a phone number on here that I've called before. It's like, we'd love to hear from our customers. I'm like, well, paper label. Let's just go ahead and see if you're still accurate. And I've called them, and it's like, hello, you've reached the Sazerac company. Please leave a message.
But I do think that, there is consistency among brands like that. I think I kind of lost the thread somewhere in there. But the point is, like, stories behind brands now, I think, help to drive the overall popularity of these products. And we can talk all we want about Blanton's and not even Blanton's, like the Pappies of the world, and how storied those are, and how people just fawn over them. I think that there is something to be said, not just about the history of brands themselves, but how people have built communities around them. And yes, there is some sense of, like, unique taste and preference behind it. But at the same time, things get hyped for a reason.
Yeah. So here's the deal, dude. There's good people in whiskey. Like, what you're doing, you have built an incredible community. We've had actually some people that, well, we've had some people get tired of us and move over to you and be like, man, Perry's my people. And here's the deal. Here's what I tell those people. Dude, I completely get it. Like, the community of whiskey is it's multifaceted. You know what I mean? So, what I tell people is that whiskey is cool, but the people actually make whiskey cool. Okay.
I agree.
And at the end of the day, yes, is there good things that we really love that, we as consumers, really want? Like, yes, if that tastes really good, we want it. Okay. There's this whole thing of like, oh man, all these people are saying that this is the best whiskey ever. Let's get that. Okay. I'm just going to base my whole existence in the whiskey industry of obtaining these bottles that mean a dang thing to anybody. Absolutely. And that's all it is. No, that's fine. If you want to view whiskey as an investment, that's fine. It probably grows in value more than freaking Bitcoin. Great.
Oh, I can confirm it. It does.
You do that.
It's been a bad week for Bitcoin.
I don't give a rip. I really, you do whiskey how you want to do whiskey.
Yeah.
But I promise you, if you dive into whiskey and it's community first, if it's people first, if it's friends first, you're going to get a whole lot more out of whiskey than you ever thought you could. And that's what, Will and I, that's what we do with Whiskey Weekend and the podcast and all that stuff. That's what you do over here. there are some not great people in whiskey. Okay. Just saunter on over to Bourboner and you'll just see a bunch of them right there. They put their name on it and then they say something and then you just know who they are, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's some really, really, really good people in whiskey.
Yeah.
And we're so fortunate to have them surrounding us.
Yeah. And that's where so many of those stories, at least now, come from. And you know, that there are the black sheep that we kind of, you know, have to address every now and then, but man, it is so.
Well, it's just the people that put everybody down of like what people are going to drink.
Exactly.
They put people down of like the decisions they make in whiskey, like what you traded for what? Like you're an idiot. Like, why would you do that? It's the people that hate the people that love Weller Special Reserve or like Blanton's or like to have a cool memento on their bottle that signifies like, you know, like a sticker or something. Like I like stickers. What's wrong with stickers?
I do too.
I've been in this whiskey game for a lot longer than not most people, a lot longer than a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I freaking love stickers. What's wrong with stickers?
I think
they're freaking fun.
Either.
Like I love the thing I love about whiskey is the creativity. Okay. Our buddies, Bob Little and James Smith down in Atlanta, they do this BS and bourbon thing and they have these bottles. They're like spray painting them and all this other stuff. And like, they've got a bunch of cool stickers and doing all the wax things. Sure. Fine. Go ahead.
That's so.
And you know what? If they want to charge more for it and people are willing to pay it, that sounds great. I don't give a rip. They're not, I don't, this whole word tater just kind of pisses me off.
It is a frustrating kind of sub conversation of what we're talking about. And I don't want to keep you too much longer.
I don't want to get in the weeds.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I also don't want to keep you too much longer since you've already been sitting down with me for almost 2 hours total. Golly.
I've actually been standing.
Well, I've been parking my butt right here. And see, this is why you are going to come out of the pandemic in better shape than I am. So
I ordered one of those tonals, you know, those mirror things.
Did you really?
I did. I'm about to get after it.
Can we touch back on that in like 2 seconds for tips and bits?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I haven't gotten it yet. It hadn't been installed yet. It's coming this month.
Oh, well, never mind then. I mean, we'll definitely get to our recommendations for tips and bits.
You want me to share my workouts with you?
Maybe. Can you send me a PDF?
I'm going to need you to do 2,000 sit-ups.
What over the next month?
That's what Tonal told me to do. I'm just telling you what it told me.
Holy moly. You know, I will say too, like, I think I might have popped another gray hair in my beard just from that comment. Like, I've got this one. I don't think you can see it, but I've got this one really, really long white hair. Not even gray.
Have you kept it? You're just keeping it?
I've just kept it. I don't want to get rid of it because it feels like it's a part of me now. Like, I think maybe
it's like a Samson situation. If I pluck this daggum thing, dude, like
my entire house is literally just going to collapse.
I'm sorry, I can't open that pickle jar for you no more. I plucked this daggum gray hair. Grease told me to.
Joke's on you. I couldn't open that pickle jar before you plucked the hair out of my face. But
you got to get the towel and
yeah, and the rubber bands and I used to. My parents had like a rubber like circle thing. I don't even know what you would call it.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. But like,
you sit on it.
Yeah, that was directly a product of like the 1960s, right? Like innovation.
Yeah, they knew how to get it done
at its finest.
Yeah.
Like,
now we create an app with some sort of motorized piece of crap.
Just a Rube Goldberg machine
and our grandparents are just looking at us like, y'all hold my beer, you idiots. Okay.
They crack it on the side of a counter.
30-cent piece of plastic. They can literally be like, you want an in-app purchase? Here you go, buddy.
We'll send an entire SWAT team over to open up that jar for you.
I never thought the words in-app purchase would like be condescending, but it is. And I'm completely fine with it.
Hey, we know plenty of people who have played Farmville or Candy Crush or whatever, because that's
for sure.
That's all in-app purchases. Hey, I definitely want to get some tips and bits out of you before we get out of here. So it's recommendations.
Right.
It doesn't have to be whiskey related. Usually it's not whiskey related. based on what we've been watching or listening to or reading recently. So any tips or bits for us here, Grease?
Just like tips.
I mean, things people should check out.
Oh man. Kentucky Artisan Distillery is pretty great. I went there the other day. So that's the distillery that does all the contract distilling for Jefferson's.
Mm-hmm.
We had some of their White Dog the other day. I'm not a White Dog fan.
Ooh.
I'm not. It's young. It's corny. Like, I don't love it. Dude, the Jefferson's White Dog is insanity.
Really?
All I want to do is like look at Trey in his face. And I'm like, I'm going to need you to age this crap up for 12 years and release it as barrel strength without putting it on a boat. If I could tell him those words, it would be the greatest thing, dude. It would be incredible. It would be so good. Dude, this White Dog is like fruity, floral. The finish is long. It's insane. It is so crazy. I have some for you. I will send you some.
Please
I made them bottle up.
Do.
I made them bottle up some stuff, but
made them. You held them at gunpoint.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I know you. I know that's definitely within your personality.
Right. Yep.
Please know I'm kidding, everybody. That's not who Greeze is at all. That is so far from the truth.
I mean, unless it's late at night on Patreon. I'm just kidding. I don't do that either. So their tours are limited right now. We got to go on a special tour, which is fine because it was just Will and I the other day. But they're producing some really great things there. It's very interesting. So what I found interesting about them, number one, they're open and available for you to go and tour or at least in some capacity and do a tasting and all that, which is fine. What I did love about them is it's just a different model. You know, like they are
absolutely
a small contract distiller. Their biggest client is Jefferson's, obviously, but they do some. I mean, they're bottling for Pinhook right now. We saw the crock pots of green wax right now, so that release is going to be coming out. It's going to be lime green.
Awesome.
But yeah. So what I kind of took away from them is that they're so small that they are completely cool with being crazy. Like if you want a barrel finished rye cognac honey finished double barreled oak, they'll do it. They're not, a lot of these bigger distilleries, they have a process, right? And actually, you know what, sometimes big distilleries will reach out to them for their limited releases because it's actually cheaper for them to sub that out for a bottling that's a small run than it is for the big distilleries like Buffalo Trace, Bernheim, or Heaven Hill. Like for them to change their bottling process, like hey, we got to change the laser code process. We got to change the labeling. We got to change the bottle structure. We got to reformat the machines to do all this stuff. It's cheaper for them just to be like, no, like, we'll just pay you, $100,000 to bottle this line for us, and then they call it done. It's fascinating. It's a different model. Yeah, it's pretty cool. They kind of go into that. So they're fine with taking chances. They've got a ton of different mash bills.
Of course.
What I found unique too about Jefferson's is what I didn't know. I knew it was a blend of multiple mash bills, but I didn't know that it's actually that all of their mash bills pre-barrel get blended.
Whoa, really?
I mean, here's the deal. This is Grease facts, but when I went on this tour, the process that I saw was that it's 4 mash bills and then it's in a vat and it's blended and then it's barreled.
That's insane, dude.
Right.
I didn't know that at all.
Right. So logistically to me, that makes complete sense. Like if Trey knows that this is the blend that I like of mash bills, and this is the if that's what he loves and that's what he wants, that's totally fine. I literally thought it was like each barrel was a different mash bill composite, aging at the same time or roughly, and then the blend of the batch kind of happened post. Yeah, but that actually makes more sense of consistency blending those mash bills prior to barrel entry
for sure. Yeah, have you gotten to chat with Trey yet?
So face to face, yes, for about 30 seconds.
Okay. Yeah.
But no, I haven't got to sit down and chat with him at all, but maybe we do it sometime soon. So the awesome thing is that distillery, Kentucky Arson Distillery, is actually going to be a part of Whiskey Weekend opening night. We're going to do a tasting with them and presentation, which will be really fun.
That's awesome. I got to, you know what, one of the weirdest things about doing this podcast thing is when people are like, yeah, you can just come over to my house and interview me. Like, I got to go to Trey's house and sit down in his
Will and
dining,
I talked about that the other day.
Room.
Like, dude, if we could live in Louisville or Lexington, that's all we need to do. We'd have dude, it's so much fun.
It's great.
I'm so jealous you live in Lexington. I do.
I put it out in 2019, but I had a really good interview with Trey. You guys, if you guys want to go and listen to it, but I'll do a quick little tips and bits.
Hey Siri, remind me tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. to listen to Perry's show with Trey in 2019. If anybody's phone is activated,
I don't know. Yeah, that's gonna hit
I just
everybody.
set reminders on 100 people. Dadgummit.
Everybody at work, anyway. But so I'll do a really quick one before we plug some stuff and then get out of here.
Are we supposed to drink this Beaumont in?
I've been drinking it.
Oh,
I poured a little bit. Do you want to talk about it for a hot second, or you're just gonna kill your bottle?
No, I didn't know when we were supposed to drink it. In my mind, I'm thinking it's the 15. We're just gonna drink it at the end and review it.
I knew that I should have made a little 15 reference, but
no, it's all good. It's no, man, dude, I've been freaking crushing this bottle the whole daggum time. We need to catch up.
We've just been chatting, yeah. But so I'll go kind of one of the things that I love to do with tips and bits is be kind of a little bit nerdy with it too. So I'm of course a big comic book movie and video game fan and whatever, but I don't know if you've seen that, and bear with me, please try to bear with me over the next couple of seconds, but the CW has a new Superman show. It's the best Superman that we've had since Christopher Reeve.
Well, I'm a Superman fan. I didn't know that the OC, or what is it? The OC?
The CW. No, that's Orange County. This is the CW.
CW.
So it's what used to be the WB with Gilmore Girls and Smallville.
OC
and everything.
Used to be a show on the CW.
Maybe, I don't even really know. That might be slightly. No, the OC was on Fox, wasn't it, or ABC or NBC? I don't know. Anyway, so the CW has a new Superman show. It's called Superman and Lois. Superman and Lois. That's
whoa, hang on,
2020. No, it's Superman.
I don't know if you want to keep this in or not, Barry, but I mean, it's kind of like an Adam and Steve situation you just said. Which
I'm fine
it.
With. I'm believe it. I don't care either, but that actually is pretty funny. And anyway, so they've got a show called Superman and Lois. The actors who are the main characters, of course, Clark Kent and Lois Lane, have been within this CW superhero universe for a few years. And they finally have gotten their own show. And I really, really, really enjoyed the first episode. I mean, I, again, thought it was the best iteration of Superman we've had since Christopher Reeve. It's the highest production value and quality that we've had out of a WB show. It maybe ever. I mean, it feels more cinematic than it does television quality.
I experienced that with Eastbound and Down on HBO. I was like, well, daggone, this feels like Wedding Crashers, but it's not. It's on TV.
Yeah,
we just shoot this crap in 24 frames per second.
We just got done with Silicon Valley, so HBO is still in the same realm, but not quite the same deal. Anyway, Greeze, buddy, it has been so good to get to sit down and chat with you and drink with you for a little bit. Man. This is kind of helped get me over a little bit of the FOMO from Whiskey Weekend Batch 3, but I also am looking forward to getting to bring you and Will on for a live stream here in a few weeks. I know we're still kind of nailing down those that schedule, but I am excited to.
Yeah, I mean, sometime in probably mid to late March, we're probably looking at that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can make that happen.
Again,
we've just got a couple of things early March that I'm like, I don't know what's happening, but Will's got it all planned out. That's what he does.
He's got that whiteboard and he's got all the like pens and everything going. But buddy, thank you so much. Where can people find you all on social media, and where can they find the podcast?
Well, there's a fake Greeze out there. So on Instagram, I'm at the real Greeze, kind of like Trump, but not really at all, actually. So, and at the PodCask on Instagram. We've got a really cool, fun Facebook group called the Podcasters. You can find
I'm part of it, man. It's a really, really good group of people. I want to say too, before I plug anything, and I haven't shared this expressly with you all in a while, but when I was starting my podcast, it
feels like a front porch Beaumont conversation.
It does. And we don't get to have that this year, but
no, I love it. I love it. Let's do it. It's bringing back memories for me right now.
You guys were such big influences for me when I started my podcast, and I was listening to you all, and I was like, I want to do something like this in terms of community, but I want to take it and do my own spin. So, like my biggest issue or my biggest concern is always, am I being sincere? Am I being unique with what I'm doing? And I never wanted to put out a copycat of the podcast. I always wanted to be my own thing with it. And I think I've finally gotten there 3.5 years in. Like, it's still maintaining.
I think you were there super early. Like, yeah, I mean, dude, you've always been yourself. You've always been fun. You've been good for whiskey. Well, dude, you're so good for whiskey. I love you, Perry. I love you as a person, but I also love you as like a whiskey influencer and podcaster and all this other stuff. So, you represent it well. I mean, I think you're a great person. Will and I, we don't really have a lot of guests on. Like, we just developed a new YouTube series recently for that, which is great. But on our podcast, I mean, Fred Minnick, Bernie Lubbers, paused for a really long time. Like we didn't have, you were one of our first, you and John Edwards from Dad's Drinking Bourbon were literally probably, outside of Bernie Lubbers and Fred Minnick for a really long time, like our only people that we even had on the show. We believe in you. And we always knew you were going to be good for whiskey. Dude, you've got hustle. You hustle so hard and you do a great job. And it's only natural that we would be a part of what you're doing, because we believe in you. This is sounding like I brought you on just so I could like get a little ego boost, but it legitimately, like, I love you too. I love everything that you guys are doing, and I fully believe in what you're doing. And I am always so willing to cross over and create content with you guys whenever we actually can. And I know that at times it's not viable just because because you're a little smarter than I am. Yeah. We could talk about that in a deeper Patreon episode maybe, but I just want to say, where we can be real. If you haven't enjoyed Perry's Patreon, you should, because that's where the real crap goes down. Over and out. But I do want to say thank you again, and you all have always been very, very supportive of what I've done, and I'm looking forward to doing more with you guys. If you want to follow me personally, and this is where I'd take a hard handbrake turn into the plugs, but if you want to follow me, I'm at PureRitter1492 on all social media channels. The show itself is at My Bourbon Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can leave us a 5-star rating and review, or just any rating and review on whatever podcatcher app you have. We usually pull them from the iTunes podcast app and then read them here on the show. And again, it's a great way for people to
find the show, and when they go and search for Bourbon Podcast, we'll pop up in that search engine, of course. You can find all of our apparel and merchandise at bourbonshop.threadless.com, including some skateboards, which I just keep pushing a little bit because nobody's bought a skateboard with the podcast logo on it yet. But I don't know, man. Like, I'm not a skateboarder, but
well, you're going about it all wrong. You need to charge $200 for a pair of leggings, and then they get a free skateboard.
That's perfect. Yeah. I'm actually going to do that. That's the new sale on the.
You definitely should do that.
We also have our glassware over at whiskeyambitions.com. This is my bourbon drinking glass, Glencairns. I'll show them here for the video. I don't know if this is going up on YouTube for everybody or just on the Patreon feed as of right now.
Lucy gets to vote. Like Lucy
does get to vote. Yeah.
I think
how much time is this going to take you? Yeah.
Right.
More than likely, this is going to wind up on our main YouTube page.
There's only a couple of edits.
Yeah, one or two here and there. Who's to say? I just have to drop in the right audio for it and then just kind of move everything around. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares about the editing process. I also go live every Thursday night on YouTube, youtube.com/This Is My Bourbon Podcast at 8 p.m. Eastern. And of course, these guys I'm pointing the wrong direction. These guys go live right after. Yeah, see, you were just, geez Louise. It's been a long night. It's been a long weekend.
It's backwards on my end because like you're not pointing towards me when you do that.
Well, I'm trying to. It doesn't matter. It's right on my end. Whatever. It doesn't matter. You can also become a patron of the show at patreon.com/bourbon podcast for as little as $1 a month. But $5 a month is where you can get access to all of the exclusive content, including the pregame chats and the last call, which comes out every week to kind of bookend the main episode here on your feed. That does it for this week. Greeze, again, thank you so much for sitting down with me, buddy. I appreciate you so much.
Absolutely, bro. Man, thanks for having me. Thanks for opening up. And I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. We'll see you all next week. But until then, I'm Perry, and this is my Bourbon Podcast.